Now let's have a look at how to go about helping children who have phonological dyslexia in your classroom. Now, through this course, we've made a very clear distinction between visual stress, also known as Erlen syndrome or scotopic sensitivity, a clear distinction between that and phonological dyslexia. So what I'm going to show you, it applies to children who have phonological dyslexia only. First thing, your children are basically going to need more time for literacy tasks than other children need. And that's because it takes them longer to turn the words that they're reading into meaning. So wherever possible, you want to take off time pressure for getting tasks done, because that's going to make a big difference. Another thing is to give children who have phonological dyslexia some sort of structure in pictures. And by that, children with phonological dyslexia often think and they plan in pictures rather than in words. So wherever possible, use pictures to demonstrate things. Now, an example of this would be that if you're teaching, say, fractions to a class, to use two-dimensional pictures of shapes being cut out to represent a half or a quarter. Another example would be, say, in essay planning for older kids. If a child needs to produce, say, 3 paragraphs, to have 3 boxes drawn and then have clear areas where the introductory sentence would go and where the concluding sentence would go. And so what you're doing is you're using diagrams and pictures to help them with that planning process. And that's going to make a big difference for children who have phonological dyslexia and who are much more likely to naturally learn with pictures. Also, wherever possible, if you're just photocopying sheets or doing whatever you do, use pictures or diagrams to break up the text. Because children with phonological dyslexia generally hate seeing a page of text that doesn't have pictures or diagrams. They often feel disheartened and defeated before they even start doing the task. So just making sure that worksheets and learning materials have plenty of diagrams and pictures will make it easier for the children to comprehend what they're learning and to remember it, because again, they often think in pictures. But not just that, it's also just a bit of an encouragement to them. And if that means photocopying pages differently or taking a page of text and photocopying it onto 2 different pages so you've got space for pictures, so be it. It won't take you long to do, but it'll make a massive difference to how the children with phonological dyslexia feel about that task. Something else that's so worth doing is to use free downloadable dyslexic fonts where you can. You know, children who don't have phonological dyslexia, they'll just think you're using a stylized font. They'll just think, oh yeah, we're just using, a different style today. But it just makes such a difference. Now, there are so many free fonts that are so helpful for students who have phonological dyslexia. Some of them are paid fonts, some of them you actually have to pay to download, but most of them are free, and really they all pretty much do the same job, and the difference between them is fairly minimal. Now, with these fonts, the designs of each letter is actually unique. So it reduces the errors that children with phonological dyslexia will make between, say, P's and Q's or B's and D's. You know, the whole letter reversal thing? Well, if you look on the internet, you'll find there's just so much out there that's available. It's free for you. I would highly recommend using free downloadable dyslexic fonts. Something else that's really worthwhile for younger children is to really get them involved with anything to do with rhyming words. Keeping in mind that children with phonological dyslexia have trouble naturally pulling words apart, putting them back together in their heads. Well, rhyming words are a good way of causing your younger children to be doing that without even really thinking about it. So things like cat, mat, hat, fat, bat, all those words that young children tend to pick up fairly quickly. Well, it's actually training your children with phonological dyslexia to recognize that cat is not C-A-T. Cat is C and then A-T. It's k-at. And then you can transfer that knowledge to go, okay, it's M-A-T is at, mat. So that they're learning to not just see letters as letters, but as combinations of letters creating particular sounds. Very, 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 very helpful. Another thing you can do with older children, say, late primary, is that with phonological dyslexia, you can use suffixes and prefixes really well. So things like the word happy, well, if you put un at the front, un, you can have unhappy. And what that's doing is it's teaching these kids, oh, you can have happy or you can have unhappy. You're changing, things around a bit. They're pulling words apart, they're putting them back together. And even words like, say, happiness, never mind that the Y turns into an I, but you get what I mean. The word happiness, we're pulling words apart, we're putting them back together. So to use prefixes and suffixes really well And basically anything that requires your children to be pulling words apart into chunks and then putting them back together, that's good skill development for a child with phonological dyslexia. It's going to take a lot of time before it has a big impact, but it's healthy. Another helpful thing is audiobooks. Now, whether you've got young children who are just following along with the pages of a book with the audiobook playing, or whether you've got, say, year 8 or 9 students who, instead of reading the novel, they're listening to it as an audiobook, it's just so beneficial. Now, the catch with audiobooks is it takes effort and energy to track them down. So that same child who is in your year 9 class doing some sort of novel, they're supposed to read the novel, they're already disillusioned with the task before they even start. I hate Shakespeare or whatever they're saying, they hate the task. So the effort for them to go and track down the audiobook, they probably couldn't be bothered. So maybe you're going to need to do that for them, or at least find somewhere on the internet where they can easily download it, maybe let their parents know. But audiobooks, well worth the time and the effort. And especially for something to keep in mind for younger children is a lot of what happens with them with phonological dyslexia is they just need more and more practice. You can't put enough practice into them. So mum or dad don't have time at home to give them all the practice that they really should be giving them, but an audiobook can fill that gap. Another really valuable thing to do is to have the child watch the movie. We've all chatted with the high school teachers who are telling us, my kids won't read the book, they will watch the movie. The movie's different from the book. They're not getting the same value out of the movie as they are from the book. You know what? For a lot of your kids who have phonological dyslexia, they're not actually wanting that A or that A+ that you or I would want if we were them. They're just wanting to survive the task. So watching the movie is of huge value, and maybe you'll watch it in class, or maybe you'll at least get them to watch it at home. But watching the movie is so valuable because a child with phonological dyslexia, who when they're trying to read the novel, it's so hard for them to do, so hard. But even if they were trying to read the novel, they're not really going to comprehend everything. Whereas if they're watching the movie, it's all visual, they get it. They get the storyline. And then they can actually engage with whatever the essay question is asking about the movie. So at every possible opportunity, have your children watch the movie. It's just so worthwhile. Something else that's super important for children with phonological dyslexia is that as a teacher, if you've got children with phonological dyslexia in your class, and let's be real, you almost certainly do, you want to take extra time to explain the task before the child starts. Now, one of the challenges for children with phonological dyslexia is that before they even start, they already feel a sense of hopelessness and a fear of failing. And so the extra time that you take to make sure the child fully understands the task, whether it be maths or English or whatever your subject, taking that extra time, adding in pictures, making sure that the child understands exactly what's required if they've got, say, a written assignment question, it's going to make such a difference for the child's confidence. Yes, it's going to help them understand the task, which is good, but part of it really is just the confidence to give the task their full effort and their full attention rather than to just give up. So look, we've covered a lot there. This is just scratching the surface. This is just the quick, easy things that you can do for children who have phonological dyslexia. But by the end of this course, you will have learned how to create new ideas that are relevant to your situation, to your year level, to your subject. And that's just fantastic. And that's what I'm hoping you'll get out of the course. But just a quick recap of what these general ideas were is firstly, make sure that wherever possible, you're working with pictures, not just with text. Secondly, if whatever you're using with say science or maths, try and use diagrams because you can't expect these kids with phonological dyslexia to just suddenly pick up a concept by reading a paragraph about it. Of course, use free downloadable dyslexic fonts wherever possible. For younger children, use rhyming words. For older children, use your prefixes and your suffixes to try and get your children with phonological dyslexia pulling words apart, putting them back together, seeing that, you can mess around with words and you can mess around with sounds, and that these things are interchangeable. It's really such a skill that we want them to have. As well as that, audiobooks are fantastic. It might require more effort from you, but it's going to pay off. And having kids watch the movie instead of reading the novel, we covered that. Super important, super straightforward. I mean, my goodness, in this day and age, it should be pretty much standard. As well as that, we covered that it's important to take extra time to explain and then, if necessary, re-explain the task that you want your children to do, your whole class is going to benefit from it. But particularly the children with phonological dyslexia, often they just need the confidence that comes from understanding the task well.